This morning?
Same ones we do every morning, just
Okay.
TTR, slingshot TTR. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So good morning and welcome to everybody in Actions to Wealth Trader world. There is a trade on the FTSE 100, and everybody can see my screen. There's a trade. I mean, this is going to be another scalp, and it's really kind of up to the daily pivot. Now, I'm not sure if I'm 100% set up for it. I've got a little bit of a question about the move on a longer term basis, but I personally think that we're probably much more likely to see some upside than downside. As I was saying to you, Jeff, I'm questioning whether I should trade at all today, and maybe that runs true for the rest of the week, actually, because I can't. I found it a little bit hard to harness, and actually, you know what? When when this gap arrived yesterday, complete amateur on my front, and now I called a little trade to the upside just before we left the show, and that would have worked out. So anybody that traded long from this point and took your profit at weekly pivot would have made a nice bit of money. And if you remember rightly, it was off a 5-minute bar, and the 5-minute bar was. Which one was it? It was back. It was this one. This is our 5-minute bar. So you'd have had a nice move back to the weekly pivot. So that's what we started with. That's what we ended with yesterday. We ended with a nice trade to the upside. Now, I'm a little bit out of sync, I've got to say. This is a little bit sloppy of me because this gap was caused by the expiration of the futures rolling over into the next.
Is that what it was?
Right. Yeah. And I've been caught out on that enough times to really know what it is. But it was only later on it dawned on me when I was looking at the FTSE 100 and there was no gap in the cash market that it dawned on me what this was. It closed its gap, which it does tend to do. It's a really interesting thing, the gap in the futures market, because it does tend to close it within a short period of time. And it did that. We moved to the downside, but actually this price that we're on right now is kind of the same as here. So if you had open trades from this point, then you wouldn't have made this much money because they recalculate and recalibrate the profit for you. So we are effectively in the same situation, which means that we are still kind of bound in a range, and finding that range might take a little while. And this is not a rule of mine, but it's certainly something that I'm much more likely to do, and that's just allow the charts to resettle down with the futures, and I'll show you just what that means. So that's kind of our range there. Now this is a version of the cash, and you can see no gap. So if we think about where we were a couple of days before, we're basically in the same situation. You can see that there's a level of support here. So we're basically near that low again. We're a little bit lower, but we haven't broken the lowest point of price action. So we're effectively, if we think about that back to the futures. This one was on the 17th, and we go back to the futures. Then we see the 17th was this one here. This one here actually. So that's kind of where we are. That would be the equivalent. So which suggests that we are at the lowest point, which is a buy zone, and I'll be looking for a push and the push back up to kind of what would be this area, which looks like it will equate to the daily pivot. So there is a little trade on there, mate, and it looks like the first 15 minutes of the day may well give us that. Stops will be at the lows, and you'll be off and running if you want to trade that. But I'm not going to trade it. I'm not going to trade it. I feel a little bit out of sync with the market, and this usually does provide me with a little bit of out of syncness, if you like.
Yeah, that's a thing. I can assure you that's a thing.
Yeah. Now, if it, I was in sync yesterday, even with the gap, and it popped up and gave me the profit. Now, if the same thing happens today, then I'm going to start feeling a bit more comfortable about where price action is. But what I'd actually quite like Now, it's not that I'm not a buyer, because I am a buyer in a shorter term market. I think I'm a longer term seller, but in a shorter term market, I am a buyer, but I don't really love it here. It's okay for a little scalp. It's okay, but this isn't where I love it. And I'll show you where I love it and where I will definitely be all over it if it comes down to it. And that is this level here. Let me just make sure I've got the right thing on here. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Okay, we'll have to do this on the I'll have to do it on the cash. So bringing back into cash.
You've got a sweet spot somewhere, have you?
I do on the cash, yeah. So the cash for me is probably just going to take the lead for a week or so until the futures chart just calms down a little bit. And the cash one is. Now you can see that this is the struggle here, Jeff. Look at this. Now you look at this on a daily chart. Now we can put these in. I got my snap tool on, so that's snapping there, that's snapping there, and it leads me down here. Now if I bring this to a 4-hour chart, it's missing. So when I snap it into a 4-hour chart, then actually I'll get a different price. So that's enough to suggest that these charts are a little bit confused, and you know, I can't garner anything from that. I don't know what other traders are looking at. Are they looking at this level or are they looking at the other one? So I'm going to sit tight on this one. I'd be happy enough. Now, what I was thinking was, if this was accurate on the daily. So if I just put this back on the daily, where you get this low again, what I was thinking was that we're likely to come down a little bit further and maybe test this area again. And at that point, I'd be happy with a long.
Yep.
I'm not too happy with a short into that. It feels just a little bit pushed, and I have to take into account what we've had overnight, which was the Fed's rate decision, which was a cut. We've also had Japan stocks, the Nikkei 225 doing pretty well, because Japanese policy was also that was left unchanged. We've had a cut from the United States. We've had a cut from the ECB. Rhetoric from the ECB that they will do what's necessary. Rhetoric from the Fed that they will do what's necessary. That doesn't really fill me with too much confidence that I should be looking for a short at this particular stage. I think what might have to be the catalyst for a genuine move to the downside is going to have to be this trade war, the disputes. I can't call it a resolution, because the resolution would suggest that we'll move to the upside. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's where I'm at. Maybe my real kind of reading of the market right now, and I was going to say a feeling, but it's not just a feeling. It is a read of the market, and this is why I'm not keen on trading. Because my read of the market is that it doesn't know which way to turn. And if it doesn't know which way to turn, I don't know which way to turn. I don't have anything which is going to help move this market and make its decision. So until the market makes a decision, I'm on the sidelines. Now, that might mean that it grinds up, or it might mean that it grinds down, and it goes in either of those directions without me. But I need a little bit more certainty. I need a bit more clarity that whichever direction I pick, I've got a decent chance that I'm going to get some follow through, and I'm going to move in that direction for a sustained period, and relatively quickly as well. So I'm sitting this one out, mate. I just don't like it enough. I don't get enough clarity, and the reasons when I really kind of like build them. When I build up the reasons for taking a trade, they don't suggest the direction that I really want, which I suppose is probably to the downside. That's what I'm really after. I'm really after some downside, because I think that the overall picture for the stock market is for weakness. I think that we are headed into potential recessionary areas. I think we've had enough indication to suggest that we're probably headed for something of a recession. But I think what might be likely is that we bang our head between a couple of levels for a period anyway.
Yeah. And that chart's really saying that anyway, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think the pivot is a better one to look at because we can maybe see some other bits and pieces. But if anybody's interested, scalping to the upside is absolutely fine. And it looks like, especially if we get something that proves that this is going to hold down here, maybe a 15-minute reversal bar would be worth taking to the upside. Trading it to the daily pivot, you're going to get maybe a 20 pip gain for and possibly more if it comes back up to this point as well, for a 10 pip stop loss. Not a game that I'm prepared to play though, mate. It doesn't sit as well as it should for me, and it's one of those that that would be the read that I would get, but there's something stopping me, and whatever it is, whether it's a mental block that I need to deal with, that needs to be dealt with. Whether it is actually something that is genuinely palpable that I can't quite put my finger on, I still need to sit it out. So either way, I just can't trade right now.
Mate, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's there, you're doing exactly what you should be doing, in my opinion. That's astute trading, that's called. It's understanding and recognizing that you're not in the comfort zone that you like. And if you're not there, why would you bother?
Yeah, and I think that's hit the nail on the head.
A match to burn £100 notes, mate.
But this is the thing. I'm not in a comfort zone, and there's I kind of constantly think about the market having a glitch when I take a trade. There's a glitch in the system. The matrix has seen the black cat, and I want to kind of trade that. But I feel like I've got a bit of a glitch in my own system right now. So because of that, I'm just going to sit it out, and it might, this is one of those, isn't it? That as much as I will put some of it down to my own way of thinking. There's no doubt about it. The market is in a weird and strange place right now, and you only have to look at the euro dollar for that to be expressed in its most pure form, because the euro dollar just cannot catch any kind of direction at all when it's been given two huge opportunities with two central bankers. This is what puts the meat on the bones when we get the central banker's statement and the central banker's monetary policy rate decisions. This is what should give us the direction, and yet when we look at the euro, it's all over the place. It just cannot decide what is going on. Extreme lows down here, tested and rejected, back to the monthly pivot, bursted its way through, no follow through, back beneath it again, no follow through, back above it, just back beneath the weekly pivot, back above it. And now we're getting something which looks like it's kind of trapped between the daily and the weekly, which would suggest again that if this looks like a shooting star / high test bar after the 4-hour period is finished, then we're looking for some further downside. And I can't make any other case for the euro but for downside anyway. Regardless of anything else. But why is it not collapsing? And the only answer that I can really come up with at any kind of one point is that there is almost a fear that it's so cheap down here that that nobody wants to kind of miss out on it, so they're buying it up in the hope that something fundamentally positive happens. But as I say, this really does kind of personify what's going on with the market, which is making it tough to make a decision. Because as I said with the FTSE, the market doesn't know what to do, and nor does the euro. The FTSE does not. The FTSE traders don't know what to do, and nor do they with the euro. The euro traders don't know what to do. They're not sure which way this is going to break with momentum for a significantly long enough amount of time to make some decent money on and ride it properly. So I don't know how you feel about that, mate, but this really does kind of suggest it for me, what we've got with this current market.
And for good reason. I mean, if you're talking about trading against the US dollar, then the euro is the one that's going to tell you what's happening. And it isn't, as you say, correctly. But there are a couple of things, and I can make a case for both. I can make a case for the bears, and I can make a case for the bulls.
Yep.
And generally, when that's the case, it underlines exactly what you're saying. That nobody knows what's going on. Do we therefore look to trade a breakout and put an entry long and an entry short? Maybe. Something's got to give at some stage. I don't know when. I don't know why. As you say, we've had interest rate announcement on the euro, cut. Interest rate announcement on the dollar, cut. And the market's barely moved.
Yeah.
So I don't know either, mate. I really don't. But as I say, at this very point in time, until the current, I suppose, 4-hour bar, although that's probably not going to make a difference either. But if it were to close, let's say around the daily pivot there somewhere,
yeah,
there's still a strong case for the bulls because
yes. Oh, yeah.
we've got a double bottom, we've got a higher low, which is a considered higher low at 110. So a significant number.
Yeah.
And then potentially now we've got a second higher low. The issue, of course, is we've also got lower highs.
Yeah.
So from a technician's point of view, that's very, very confusing chart. I would be happy to trade back into the trend line or the monthly pivot, the resistance trend line or the monthly pivot on the 4-hour chart. But there's really no room, and that's the issue. So you're going to have to take it on a smaller time frame. And that smaller time frame, quite frankly, is setting up as we speak for me. Whether I'm going to trade it or not in 18 minutes time, I'll tell you shortly, but chances are I will, and it will be a long. We shall see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, I suppose with this, breaking out the pattern would help, wouldn't it?
Not me, no, because I'm more than happy to trade within the patterns.
Yeah.
I think they guide me more than put fear into me. So I'm more than happy to do that. And on that basis, I'm going back into a range. I'm not coming out of one.
Yeah.
So if I can trade back to the monthly pivot and put, the best part of the trade in the bank, then happy days. I'll be
the burglar trade.
The burglar trade, mate. Break-ins, exactly right.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, let's talk about the Aussie dollar, because that was the Aussie yen. It was an amazing trade that you gave us yesterday.
Aussie yen, yep.
We got that follow through from the news, and you sent me the video just before the announcement, saying that you had information that the unemployment numbers were going to be worse than expected.
Yes. Well, indeed, I put a figure on it, 5.3, and it's exactly what happened.
So
I'm not saying
let's see your chart, mate. But the other question I've got then is, how did you arrive at that number?
Mate, it's not a crystal ball. It's pretty much what the economists that I was listening to at the time was indicating. So he was pretty confident that that was going to be the number. Whether he had inside knowledge of that, I have no idea. I hope I have no idea, because it's illegal to do it. But that's exactly where that came from. So right. If I heard it, I thought I might as well share it with everyone. And it's pretty much bang on what happened. And of course, if there was going to be an increase in unemployment rate, then there's only one track that the Aussie dollar was going to take at that point, and that, of course, is down. Aussie yen at the moment, I haven't banked anything on this trade yet because I had a very strong feeling that this would tumble fairly far. The question now is, how long can I hang on before I take profit? I have moved my stops, I'll say that. And the reason I moved my stops was earlier in the day, because this was pre the Japanese announcement. So what I didn't want to happen was, okay, the Aussie takes me down, but the yen takes me back. So I put a bit of an insurance on that. And obviously with the BOJ doing nothing, then the market continued to fall. Now, whether I'm ballsy enough to hang on to this, because, you know, there's another substantial amount of money there if I want to lock something in, another 20 odd pips I could take to that swing. It's only a swing on a 30-minute chart, so it really doesn't mean that much. But what I am seeing potential for is price to, and you would expect now that we've had that, well, nearly 100 pip fall, you would expect one of two things: consolidation or retracement. I don't really expect this to go any further, but I did want to see what the early traders in London wanted to do with this, but it seems they don't want to touch it at the moment. So I am inclined to lock that in, let the stop get hit, let us go back to a resistance level or wherever it wants to go, and put another entry short underneath maybe that current bar. Now, if I was trading without this profit in the bank, there's no way in the world I'd go short here, no way. But if I'm playing with a good amount of profit, then I can afford a little bit of a hiccup here. And I put a very tight stop on that, so that if I'm wrong and the momentum doesn't keep us going, then I can get out pretty quickly. And I think that's what I'm going to do, mate. I think I'm going to lock this in. That would give us, where did we enter? We entered, I'm on the wrong chart, hourly chart.
It's a lovely trade, that.
That would give us, there's our entry there. You remember our first risk was less than 10 pips, and we took 80% off there. Well, we'd closed the whole trade, but it was a 0.8% winner, which is pretty cool for not much risk. And our second stop loss was above here, which was 25 pips. And if I were to lock this in, it's 3-1 at that point. So there's another 3% on top of the 0.8. That's a pretty cool trade. So I think I'm happy to do that. And as I say, if the stop does get hit, I can put another entry down here somewhere. And all I'm then risking really is this little bit in here. So I'm going to do that. I think that's a cool way to manage this at this point. I'll lock in another 20 pips and move my stop to just above this. Well, it's a swing on a 30-minute chart, not so much on this this hourly chart, but on the 30-minute chart it is. But I think that's where my stop's going to go. I'll call that level. For those of you who want to follow that, maybe you don't, maybe you just want to keep banking money, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'll just put it at the bottom of this candle here at 73.33. So it's only about 5 or 6 pips away from here. As I say, that's locking in just about 3-1. So that's what I'm going to do. Mate, if you can just take the screen for a bit, I've got to do a little bit of fiddling around all of that, and then I'll come back in a tick.
No problem. Okay. So, well, let's just check the FTSE. Obviously, we would be after a long if any of you have the appetite for trading today, then the long is absolutely fine. But you haven't really got much room. I mean, the daily pivot may well provide the first point of resistance, and it looks to me that it would struggle to get beyond that. So, you know, there's a case that you could take here, take the long, take the short, take the long. You know, it might get squeezed out. But trying to get some clarity is going to be tricky. I'd say the other thing about this is the pound is struggling because there doesn't seem to be any positive movement with Brexit, and we also do obviously have Mark Carney out later on, giving us the and I'm going to bring this over if I can. I'm having problems with this mouse. This is the news of the day. So the Bank of Japan press conference has gone, so we can have a look into that later on. Maybe the Swiss National Bank monetary policy assessment is never really that significant for the market. Retail sales may not be hugely significant, considering we have the big one later on. So maybe we get some movement after 12 o'clock, and that could be what we're waiting for. But I personally think that this session that we have right now is fairly. I just think it's going to be fairly innocuous. I don't really see too much that that can be traded here. So Friday doesn't suggest anything else, anything either. So we're not looking for anything there. And then we're into the penultimate week. Now maybe this starts to look at the euro. OPEC, the meetings with OPEC could be of interest. Could look at some oil. Yeah, they're all at it, aren't they? So we got the Kiwi giving our official cash rate on Wednesday next week. Final GDP from the States. I'm going to check right up until the end of the month. Here we go. Okay, now that's going to be significant. I have to say that's the first thing that I've seen that I'd be comfortable suggesting that we're going to get some movement. This as well. So not until Monday the 30th. And it's overnight news. I wonder whether the futures are going to be of interest that day. That could be a very, very interesting Sunday. Very interesting Friday, I should say, beforehand. And, you know, trying to take a position there. Certainly, if we are trading the FTSE, which I know I will be, but it depends on the rest of you guys. And then we have cash rate. Interesting as well, mate. And this is something that maybe for you to bear in mind. You got a cash rate from Australia on the 1st of October, Tuesday the 1st of October. So
yep.
I wonder whether that might have some bearing.
Yeah, they may move again. Don't know. I'll have to kind of ask my economist mate with what he thinks. No, look, I got a funny feeling they'll hold again, but you know we're a fair way from there yet. We're another couple of weeks away, so anything can happen in the meantime.
This is another number actually that's going to be interesting for that Aussie. You know, if you're still in by then, but the Chinese numbers are going to be of interest as well. It looks to me like
yes.
Import prices. The German numbers are really fascinating at this point as well. I mean, there may well be a twist or a turn with Brexit. And just quickly on Brexit, actually, just to kind of.
What's the latest?
Well, this is the latest. We've got the European Union telling the UK that it's got 12 days to set out its Brexit plans. Now, the idea really for the UK is that the idea that the UK had was that the UK was going to hold out giving in any kind of plans until the summit, which I think is on the 17th of October. But the EU is looking and sounding a little bit fed up and basically, you know, saying that that's just not good enough. We're going to need some meat on the bones before that. So. French President Emmanuel Macron agreed that the UK needed to produce the proposals in writing by the end of September, and adding, if not, then it's over. So Brexit takes another turn for the worst for the UK, actually, because Boris Johnson doesn't care. You know, what he wants in some respects is for the EU to be the protagonist that puts the nail in the coffin of Brexit. You know, he almost doesn't want the blame, even though
he's passing the buck. Yeah.
He'd be. I mean, don't get me wrong. He'd be happy to take it, and in some respects, he's not passing the buck. It's just that the fact the EU are taking the lead on it. But if the EU come and say we want the plans within the next 12 days, and Boris Johnson's flaps around a little bit and says, well, we were getting plans together, but they kicked us out before we had the chance to do it. He doesn't look as bad. I mean, considering they've had 3 years, is a bit of a mute point, and it would be a strange argument, but by the same token, with Parliament being prorogued right now, what can be done between now and 12 days? And if the EU are genuine about holding firm with that, that would look pretty damning. That would seem pretty damning.
The proroguing.
I beg your pardon?
How are those appeals going with the proroguing?
Well, what was the latest on that? Now we should have had. Okay, so the second day. So the legal battle over suspension of Parliament has finished for a second day in the Supreme Court. The government's lawyer said it was not for the courts to design the set of rules, but the QC on behalf of the campaigners against the move said it was used for an improper purpose. So we know all that. The first is an appeal led by businesswoman Gina Miller, who was, as I said, has got pretty good form. How do we get here? We don't care about that. What happened on Wednesday? Wednesday focused on the two sides that had won their argument in the lower courts. So almost one each. The Scottish court suggested that it was illegal, and I think the English court said they shouldn't be getting involved. In the morning, the government representative, Sir James Eddy, QC, argued that in favour of the English court decision. He said prorogation was a well-established constitutional function exercised by the executive, and decisions about it were squarely within the political or high policy area. Sir James also argued Parliament had previously passed laws addressing aspects of prorogation, but there was no law relevant to this particular case, meaning the courts could not intervene. And asked about the needs to uphold parliamentary sovereignty, Sir James said, a precious principle, but urged caution before the phase is too widely or generally bandied about. So one of the judges, Lady Black, asked how could Parliament apply a check on government once it has moved from a picture due to prorogation. But James said it was always okay. That's all pretty dull in some respects. It doesn't really give us any answers. It just tells us what the argument was. Let me read the final two paragraphs. It is not known whether when the judges will deliver their verdict. It could be as early as Thursday afternoon. Our Home Office Affairs correspondent said the feeling was the wait would not be long, given the importance of the issue. So it seems like it could be today, mate, at some point.
Yeah.
When I was watching Question Time, which is our little political show, they did say on Question Time that they should know by the time the next show is aired, and that's aired Thursday evening, which would suggest it would be sometime today. I thought it was going to be yesterday, but it suggests it's going to be sometime today. So that's going to do that. Now, I don't know what that will then mean when it comes down to the 12 days, but if Parliament, if they rule it unlawful, I guess they all just maraud themselves back to Parliament like a herd of wildebeests, and and see if they can get some conversations going on. But what it's just so strange. The whole thing is just so surreal in some respects, and the fact that you got Boris Johnson kind of heading it off, who is a very clever guy, but he looks like a mess. And the fact that it is kind of all a bit of a mess, kind of is almost maybe characterized by the way that he looks half the time. So who knows where we go from here, mate?
Indeed, who knows? Have we ever known? We've never had a real good idea, I don't think, what was going to happen.
No.
Ever since they announced it, that there was indeed going to be a Brexit. What it looked like, nobody knows. What it still looks like, nobody knows.
No.
Nothing really has changed. Only, gee whiz, there'll have been a lot of water go under the bridge since. and that is a fact. Okay,
So,
I have.
yep.
Sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, well, the FTSE 100 has given us that daily pivot look about it. So anybody that's in this trade, maybe worth thinking about taking profit fairly soon. I think that it's got a pretty good chance of having a little bounce down from here. And if it doesn't, then it's likely to come back. And if you like it the second time round, then take it again. But would have been an okay scalp if that was your flavour.
Oakley dokley. I have done what I said on Aussie yen. We better take a look at that, I suppose, before we leave for the day and the week. There we go. And there we go. So I moved my stop loss to here and it was hit. So I've now banked, as I said, just around about 3-to-1 risk on that second trade. On the first trade, we banked 0.8 to 1. So that's a pretty good result in anyone's language for a 24-hour trade. Now, what I've done is put an entry here. So where is it? I think it is at 73.05 was my entry. Yeah, there. So what I'm saying is if this double bottom holds, then I've done the right thing. If it breaks, then I'm back in the trade and I've sacrificed, what about, when I get back in, I got out there and I'm getting back in there. I've sacrificed 27 pips, if that's the case. But as I always say, it's very, very difficult to go broke banking. So I'm always happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's great, mate.
And look, do I think this can go along a longer distance? Yes, I absolutely do. That was my take profit level. To be honest, I wanted to hold on to there and I was going to take something off the table, but I see the potential here for a retracement. Where that retracement goes, I don't know. And that's why I'm happy just to be waiting for this to go again. If it does go again, we'll still catch that move. So no dramas. All is well.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good, mate. And the thing is, with a move like that, there's every chance that we get some retracement before we continue to the downside. So there might be more opportunities to take this one again, wouldn't there?
Yeah, look, if we come back to here, for instance, that's the level I've got flagged as the retracement level. Now, if it gets beyond that, then we've definitely done the right thing. If it doesn't, I may want to move my entry to here on a third position, or it'll actually be a fourth position. So, I am keen on this.
Yeah.
And you can tell I'm keen because I keep looking at potential opportunities to get back into this.
Yeah.
But I think that for this very moment, I think the safest one is where I'm at, which is underneath the low of the day. And I don't really expect it to get there today. This may happen tomorrow. And of course, a lot will depend on what this session does, to be fair. If it really gets back into positive territory, and by positive territory, I mean above this former support level, then we may well see this go into some sort of consolidation for a period. But I see this level 72.50, and I'm kind of dead keen on it. So any potential entry here, where I'm at, or even I don't know, we'll see. If it goes into consolidation, then that's okay. But I think for now, our entry, or our next entry, is in the safest position that can be. What else do I see? Look, it's pound news big time coming up. It's kind of a super Thursday, really, isn't it? We've had the yen news, we've had the Aussie news, we've got the pound news, and there's something else I can't remember. Utah dollar's got retail sales or something from memory. No, that's pound. Oh no, can't remember. But that should be enough for anybody's appetite, one would have thought. I'm not in a pound trade, though I wish I were. And I wish I were free trading it, but this could go either way. And you can see by all the charts that the pound is really in a state of, well, we don't know what's about to happen next. Even against the Aussie this morning, which is really interesting. And before that news, I said to my group this morning, there's one currency I want to trade against every other at the moment, and it is the pound. Now, that changes because we've got the news coming, but had I managed to jump into this one, wow, I would be very happy chappy right now, because you can trade this for free and it could go a long, long way, a long way. We've had bad news on the Aussie. We've broken resistance on the pound. Oh, sorry, pound Aussie. And we're starting to see higher highs and higher lows. My goodness, this looks good. This looks really, really good. And I wish I were in it, but I'm not. I suppose I could have had a little run at this as well, but I was too concentrating on Aussie yen. But you see what I'm saying, Ash? It's come off the bottom here, and it's started to go into these ones, and it's put in a new high today. If the news is even anywhere near positive for the pound, this is up here.
Yeah.
You know, it's another 500 pips.
I mean, it's unlikely to move. You know, I suppose again that the devil will be in the detail. Maybe when we get Mark Carney coming out and saying his piece, then we might see some movement with the pound. The assumption so far has been for an orderly Brexit, and he did actually suggest that there could be a rate hike if that was the case. So maybe. Yeah, well, that could be what people are focusing on, but you know, the kind of 12-day threat doesn't suggest that there's going to be an orderly Brexit right now.
That's true. So yes, you've always got that bloody B word in the road, haven't you?
Yeah, you do, and as soon as that clears up, you know, which is going to be the next 6 weeks by the looks of things, certainly the way that Boris Johnson's is going, one way or the other, we should know. Then as soon as that clears up, then we'd be gone, and maybe we can trade it.
Even on neutral news, you know, I think any retracement here, you know, back to a support level is a buy for me anyway. Mm-hmm. I still think the bad news on the Aussie, which is bad news, unemployment rate going up is bad news, and it's well above everyone else too. You know, you've got 3.7 in the States or 3.9, whatever it is. We're at 5.3 now. And that's not a good number, world standard at the moment, that's for sure. So I do expect the Aussie to continue to tumble, and the pound is still, or at least it was last time I looked, the strongest. Hang on, no, it has changed a bit. Let me just refresh that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, so can you see the yen sneaking up into calculations here? The CAD because of the oil situation, but apart from those two, against the dollar, the pound is still the strongest, and the Aussie is now the weakest. So, you know, that's the relative strength indicator that I use, and I see no reason, apart from bad news for the pound today.
Sorry, we haven't got that screen. What are you looking at?
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I'll bring that up then. I keep forgetting that we have to do that. I've got to go here. I've got to go new share, and I've got to go there. So that's this week, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this is against the dollar. The dollar is the strongest currency against the dollar at the moment. In other words, it's killing everything else. And the CAD, because of the oil, is probably holding its own. The yen is holding its own, and that's come back from the worst currency in, you know, probably the last. If we go back to the month, you'll find the yen will be down here somewhere. Yeah, yen and the Kiwi. So that's on the rally. Aussie's on the wane. That's why I'm super confident of this. But if we go to this week, we see that the pound is really outperforming the euro, the Swissy, the Kiwi, and the Aussie. The Aussie by a long way now, Kiwi by a long way, and the euro only just. Well, it's kind of in there, but you know, you'd really, if there's no bad news for the pound today, then you'd really want to be buying dips on both of these, in my humble opinion.
So when you look at that, obviously, you know, it's a lagging piece of
yes, it is a
information.
lagging indicator.
But what
Absolutely.
you're trying to do is ascertain whether the sentiment in each currency is likely to continue or change.
And it's very easy to misread this.
Yeah.
Because you can go, okay, the CAD's performing very well against the dollar. Aussie's up to shit. Well, we've simply got to trade CAD long against the Aussie. Go.
Yeah.
Not the case. What you're looking for is that to change a little bit. So you're looking for the pound to come down a little bit, Aussie to go up a little bit, and then look to trade it. So bring them back to where they are once they get out of where they are, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, you want them to move towards each other.
Absolutely. And when they do, that's when you want to be thinking, okay, we've still got this, and then go out and look at it on a longer time frame. You know, is the pound actually stronger than the Aussie, or is it just this week?
Yes.
Or if we go back to a month, you know, what do we see then? Well, we see a far bigger picture, but still the pound is outdoing the Aussie by a long way, but the Aussie not so bad against the dollar. Go back to a quarter if you want, and you'll still see a relative indicator that's telling you what's going on. They're tracking very closely, without question. So this week is a little bit of a stretch. So that's why you want to bring them back together. And then based on, if you can tie your fundamentals into this, if you get good news on the pound today and they're pretty close together, well, you know what you want to be doing, right? Yeah. You want to be buying the pound versus the Aussie. Yeah. So that's the kind of, you know, relative strength that I'm talking about. Yeah. Don't just say, okay, the Swissies outperforming the Kiwi by a shitload. I've got to buy the Swissy Kiwi. You don't do that. Wait until they come back closer together, then look for a good reason to trade it.
Yeah. And I suppose that'd be expressed on the chart anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look, it is. This is just a summary. You know, yeah. If you want to go on through them chart by chart, go for it.
But I mean, them actually coming closer together will be expressed on the chart.
You'll see it on the chart. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Okay, mate. Nice little tip there. Okay, well, I'm going to wait on the FTSE's. All of you can probably see that the FTSE has gone beyond that daily pivot. I'm going to wait on the FTSE. I think actually we might well get a trade on the FTSE today after that pound data. So I will be looking at the long and seeing if there's an opportunity. I'm not going to trade it yet. I'm going to sit it out until I get what I need. But the fact that it did hop up like it did, and that was my call, is suggesting that I may well be more in sync with this market than I first gave myself credit for, which is all right, right?
Well, mate, you've been pretty good all week, so I don't see any reason why that should change. In fact, I think we've had a pretty decent week between us.
Oh, it's been a great week. We haven't taken one loser, which is the significant aspect of it. And as you say, you can't go poor banking profit. So we've had a really, really good week, and I'm hoping that some of the listeners or at least one has taken some of the trades that we've been trading.
I think it'd be fair to say between us we've probably bagged 5 or 6%, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it has been that kind of week, particularly with that Aussie yen. I think that's probably hit the leather off the ball a little bit. So got to be happy. You know, if you've listened to the show, hopefully you've learned something as well, which is really the key thing. I mean, obviously we want to make you guys some money, but the key thing is hopefully you've picked some information up as well to help.
Yeah, some hows and whys. That's
exactly.
always the trick. You know, there's one thing watching someone, it's quite another understanding it and going away and being able to repeat it.
Absolutely right. Okay, mate. Well, I think we can go and deserve a wine o'clock now.
You got it. As I've got 2 more webinars to do, but maybe I'll wait for a while.
Wait for the webinars and then have wine o'clock.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I could sneak one in with dinner.
Okay, mate. All right, sounds good. Okay, we'll have a great rest of the week and a good weekend, and the same for you guys as well. Very quiet out there in the room, but I guess that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? You don't know who's listening and hopefully
Yeah, a lot of people don't know we're back on air yet, and I think that's about to change. I think there's a little bit of publicity going on shortly, so
yeah,
we might be inundated by a whole truckload of people with lots of questions.
Awesome.
See.
Well, maybe if there's no questions, maybe there's clarity, which is also a good thing. Okay, have a good one, buddy, and I will see you next
Cheers,
Monday.
Mate. You too. What time, mate?
5 to 8.
5 to 8. That's a date, and don't you be late.
All right, mate. See you next week.
Right, mate. Uru. Have a good one, guys.